The steady beeping of the heart monitor was the first thing I became aware of. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, and my limbs refused to cooperate. The antiseptic smell of hospital surroundings filled my nostrils, but my mind remained foggy, struggling to piece together how I had ended up here. I kept my eyes closed, my body still unresponsive, but my hearing slowly returned. Fragments of conversation drifted in and out of my consciousness. "How much longer do we wait, Mom?" The voice, my husband Daniel's, carried a tone I'd never heard before, impatient, cold, calculating. "Patience, darling. The doctors said her condition is deteriorating. It's just a matter of time." The speaker was Vivian, my mother-in-law. Her words held no trace of concern, only cruel anticipation. "I never thought it would take this long." Daniel's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "The poison was supposed to be untraceable, but it's been weeks, and they're still running tests." My mind reeled. Poison? The fog in my brain began to clear as adrenaline surged through my system. I struggled to keep my breathing steady, to give no indication that I was conscious and listening. "Stop worrying. No one suspects anything," Vivian soothed. "Once Rachel is gone, the transfer of assets will be complete. We've already moved most of her money to the Cayman accounts. The foundation of her financial empire will be ours." "I just want this to be over," Daniel sighed. "Playing the devoted husband is exhausting." "You've done beautifully, son. Marrying her was the perfect plan. She trusted you completely with her finances." Vivian's voice dripped with satisfaction. $42 million, and soon it will all be ours." I felt my heart rate increase slightly and forced myself to calm down, afraid the monitors would betray my consciousness. My entire body felt like lead, but my mind was racing. I had to survive. I had to fight back. "I'll check with the doctors again tomorrow," Daniel said. "Let's go. Visiting hours are almost over." I listened as their footsteps faded away, leaving me alone with the terrifying truth. My husband of 3 years had married me for my money. He and his mother had systematically poisoned me, and were now waiting for me to die so they could steal everything I'd worked for. I lay there, motionless but seething with rage and fear. My financial acumen had built my fortune, expanding my inheritance through strategic investments, property development, and venture capitalism. I'd built an empire worth over $40 million, and I'd foolishly believed I'd found a partner to share it with. Instead, I'd invited a predator into my life, my home, my finances. As the night stretched on, I made a silent vow I would survive this, and when I did, I would destroy them both. The following day, I heard the door to my hospital room open. Soft footsteps approached my bed, different from Daniel's confident stride or Vivian's precise heel clicks. "Good morning, Ms. Bennett," a gentle female voice spoke as someone adjusted my IV. "I'm Maddie, your day nurse for today." I remained still, uncertain whether to trust anyone. "Your vitals are looking better," she continued, speaking as if I could hear her. "Between you and me, I think it's strange how your husband and his mother keep asking the doctors about your prognosis, not in the worried way family usually does." My heart skipped a beat. Someone else had noticed. "I've been a nurse for 12 years, and I've seen all kinds of family dynamics during crisis," Maddie continued softly, adjusting my pillows. "Something doesn't feel right about them." I took a risk. With monumental effort, I twitched my fingers just barely. Maddie gasped, "Ms. Bennett, can you hear me?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If you can hear me, try to move your fingers again." I focused all my energy and managed to move my index finger slightly. "Oh my God," Maddie whispered. "You're conscious." She leaned closer. "Don't try to open your eyes yet. I think it might be safer if no one knows you're awake." Her voice became urgent. "I'm going to help you, but we need to be careful. I've been documenting some inconsistencies with your symptoms and treatment." I moved my finger again in acknowledgement. "Your husband and mother-in-law visit every day, but they never seem upset. Yesterday, I overheard them discussing your accounts. It didn't sound right." Maddie's voice grew determined. "I'm going to contact a friend who works in the hospital's security. We'll set up surveillance in your room. If they say anything incriminating, we'll have it recorded." Over the next week, Maddie became my lifeline. When we were alone, she would help me with small exercises to regain strength while my eyes remained closed. My coma, convincing to anyone else who entered. She brought me small amounts of water and nutrients when no one was watching, helping me regain my strength while maintaining the appearance of a deteriorating patient. 10 days after I first heard Daniel and Vivian's confession, Maddie smuggled in a small recording device. That afternoon, my would-be murderers returned. "The doctor said her kidneys are failing," Daniel reported to his mother. "It shouldn't be much longer now." "Good," Vivian responded. "I've been speaking with the financial advisor. Once Rachel is gone, you'll have power of attorney through the documentation she signed last year. We'll complete the transfer of the remaining assets." "I wish I hadn't had to marry her," Daniel complained. 3 years playing the adoring husband to that workaholic. She was so wrapped up in her precious financial empire she never even questioned why I encouraged her to drink those health smoothies every morning. "They served their purpose," Vivian said coldly. "The selenium poisoning was gradual enough that no one connected it to the supplements you were adding to her drinks. By the time she showed symptoms, it was already too late." Their voices faded as they walked toward the door. "Soon we'll be living the life we deserve," were Vivian's parting words. When Maddie returned, I squeezed her hand twice, our signal that something important had happened. She retrieved the recording device and played it back, gasping at what she heard. "This is exactly what we needed," she whispered fiercely. "I'm calling my cousin Tyler tonight. He's a financial crimes investigator. We need to protect your assets before they take everything." 2 weeks later, I was ready. With Maddie's help, I had regained enough strength to sit up and speak, though my voice was raspy from disuse. Tyler had connected us with Amanda, a brilliant financial fraud attorney, and Jordan, my former mentee from my investment firm. Together, they had compiled evidence of Daniel and Vivian's systematic draining of my accounts. The most damning discovery was that Daniel had been slowly transferring funds to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands over the past year, using forged authorizations with my signature. So far, they had managed to move nearly $30 million. The remaining $12 million would have been transferred upon my death. "Rachel, are you sure you want to proceed with this plan?" Maddie asked, concern evident in her voice. "It's risky." I nodded firmly. "They tried to murder me for my money. I won't just seek justice. I'll make sure they never harm anyone else again." Jordan adjusted her glasses, her financial expertise having been crucial in tracing the money. "I've identified all the offshore accounts. With Tyler's contacts at the fraud division, we can freeze the assets, but we need to move quickly." "What about the recording?" I asked, my voice still weak. "It's damning," Amanda confirmed, her legal mind already mapping out the case. "Combined with the toxicology reports that show selenium poisoning and the financial paper trail, we have enough for criminal charges." "But only if we catch them with the money," Tyler reminded us. "If they realize you're awake, they'll run." I leaned back against my pillows, the effort of sitting up already taxing my recovering body. "Then we stick to the plan. As far as Daniel and Vivian know, I'm still comatose and declining. Maddie will continue to falsify my charts to show kidney deterioration. Meanwhile," Jordan continued, "we'll prepare the financial trap when they make their final move to claim the remaining assets." "We'll be waiting," I finished, a cold determination settling over me. 3 days later, my plan was set in motion. Maddie entered my room, her face serious. "They're here," she whispered. "Daniel just told the doctor that they've decided to take a vacation to clear their minds before making any decisions about your long-term care. They're leaving for a 2-week Mediterranean cruise tomorrow." I smiled grimly. "Perfect. That gives us exactly the window we need." An hour later, Daniel entered my room alone. I remained still, eyes closed, breathing steady. "Well, Rachel," he said, his voice carrying no affection whatsoever, "I came to say goodbye. Mom and I are taking the Symphony Cruise line to the Mediterranean. Dr. Brennan thinks your kidneys will fail within the next week or two, but just in case you're still hanging on when we get back, I wanted you to know that I'll be grief-stricken enough to finally let them disconnect you from life support." He laughed softly. "Thanks for making me a very wealthy man. I'll think of you while I'm spending your money." He leaned down, and I felt his lips brush my forehead in a mock-tender gesture that made my skin crawl. "Goodbye, darling wife." As soon as the door closed behind him, I opened my eyes, rage burning through me like fire. "Game on," I whispered. The next morning, as Daniel and Vivian boarded the Symphony's flagship vessel, the Odyssey, Jordan, and Tyler put our plan into action. With the evidence we had gathered, Tyler convinced his colleagues at the National Financial Crimes Unit to freeze all of Daniel and Vivian's accounts. including the offshore ones we had traced. Amanda filed emergency petitions with the courts, citing the evidence of attempted murder and financial fraud. By midday, a judge had signed orders granting us access to recover my stolen funds. Jordan worked through the night, meticulously documenting every fraudulent transfer and revering them. By morning, $28 million had been recovered to a secure account only I could access. The remaining $2 million that we couldn't immediately recover had been spent or converted to cash. As compensation, Jordan located Vivian's secret retirement account, one she had hidden even from Daniel, and after confirming it contained money skimmed from my accounts, added that to our recovery efforts. With the financial side secured, I focused on my physical recovery. Maddie introduced me to her brother-in-law, Dr. Rob Pearson, a discreet physician who specialized in toxin recovery. Under his guidance, I began an intensive treatment program to flush the selenium from my system. "You're lucky to be alive," Dr. Pearson told me during one of our sessions. "The amount of selenium in your system should have been fatal. Your body must have developed some resistance to it since it was administered gradually." "I've always been stubborn," I replied, wincing as I pushed through another physical therapy exercise. Meanwhile, Detective Victor Chen from the Major Crimes Division had taken personal interest in my case. With the recording Maddie had captured, plus the financial evidence, he assured me that criminal charges would be filed. "We'll have officers waiting when their cruise ship docks," he promised. "They won't have a chance to flee." As I grew stronger, I decided on one final touch to my revenge. With Jordan's help, I crafted a special message to be delivered to Daniel and Vivian on their cruise ship. Day 10 of the Mediterranean cruise. Daniel lounged on the deck of the Odyssey, sipping an overpriced cocktail and imagining how he would spend his newfound wealth. Beside him, Vivian was already planning the purchase of a villa in Monaco. "Mr. Preston," a ship attendant approached them, "there's an urgent message for you from the mainland." Daniel accepted the envelope, frowning slightly. He tore it open and unfolded the paper inside. "Dear Daniel and Vivian, by now you must be enjoying the Mediterranean views. I hope you've been making the most of your vacation, as it will be your last taste of freedom for quite some time. You see, I'm not dead. In fact, I'm recovering quite well from the selenium poisoning you so carefully administered through my health smoothies. How disappointing for you that your murder plan failed. I thought you should know that all your accounts, including those cleverly hidden ones in the Cayman Islands, have been frozen. The $42 million you stole from me has been recovered. Detective Victor Chen and the National Financial Crimes Unit have all the evidence they need, including a recording of your conversation where you both discussed poisoning me and stealing my money. Officers will be waiting when the Odyssey docks next week. I wanted you to have this time to fully appreciate what's coming. Criminal charges for attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Enjoy these final days of luxury. Prison cells, I hear, are far less accommodating. With all my contempt, Rachel Bennett. P.S. Vivian, I found your secret retirement account too. Every penny has been recovered. Daniel's hands shook as he read the letter, the blood draining from his face. He passed it to his mother, who let out a strangled cry upon reading its contents. "This can't be possible," Vivian hissed, looking around frantically as if expecting police to materialize on the cruise ship. She was dying. "We need to run," Daniel said, his voice trembling. "We can't go back to the U.S. We need to get off at the next port, disappear." "With what money?" Vivian snapped. "If she's frozen our accounts, we have nothing but what cash we brought on board." The reality of their situation descended upon them like a physical weight. Trapped on a cruise ship for another 4 days, with law enforcement waiting at journey's end, and no access to the fortune they had schemed so meticulously to steal. Their paradise had become a floating prison. I was waiting at the port when the Odyssey docked a week later. My strength had returned enough that I could stand with only a cane for support. Detective Chen stood beside me, along with 4 uniformed officers. The passengers began disembarking, and I spotted them immediately. Daniel and Vivian looked haggard, nothing like the confident, wealthy fraudsters who had boarded 2 weeks earlier. Their designer clothes couldn't hide the fear in their eyes as they scanned the crowd, likely looking for a last-minute escape route. There was none. Daniel and Vivian Preston, Detective Chen stepped forward, flanked by his officers. You're under arrest for attempted murder, criminal conspiracy, and grand financial fraud. I stepped into their line of sight, standing tall despite the weakness still lingering in my body. The shock on their faces when they saw me was everything I had imagined during my recovery. Rachel, Daniel whispered, his face ashen. How? You should have been more careful discussing your murder plans in my hospital room, I said, my voice steady and cold. Or perhaps you should have chosen a less observant nurse than Maddie. Vivian's composure cracked completely. You can't do this to us. We're entitled to that money. Entitled? I stepped closer, staring into the eyes of the woman who had helped plot my death. The only thing you're entitled to now is a fair trial, which is more than you offered me. As the officers led them away in handcuffs, reading them their rights, I felt no triumph, only a grim satisfaction that justice would be served. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. The recorded confession, the toxicology reports confirming selenium poisoning, the financial records showing systematic theft, and the testimony of medical experts who confirmed the poisoning had been deliberate and sustained. I testified on the second day, facing Daniel across the courtroom. The man I had once loved, who had shared my bed while slowly poisoning me, couldn't meet my eyes. Ms. Bennett, the prosecutor asked, when did you first become aware of the defendant's plan? I regained consciousness after 6 weeks in a coma, I explained to the rapt courtroom. The first thing I heard was my husband and mother-in-law discussing how they had poisoned me and stolen my money. They were waiting for me to die so they could complete the transfer of my remaining assets. The jury's verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The judge showed no mercy in sentencing. Daniel Preston, you have been found guilty of attempted first-degree murder, criminal conspiracy, and grand financial fraud, the judge declared. I sentence you to 30 years in prison without the possibility of parole for 15 years. He turned to Vivian. Vivian Preston, you have been found guilty of criminal conspiracy to commit murder and financial fraud. I sentence you to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole for 12 years. As they were led away, Daniel finally looked at me. In his eyes, I saw not remorse but anger that his plan had failed. It confirmed what I already knew. I had escaped not just death, but a life with a monster. 1 year later, I stood in the gleaming offices of Sentinel Financial Protection, the company I had founded with part of my recovered fortune. After my recovery, I had found a new purpose, helping others avoid financial predators. Maddie had left nursing to become my executive assistant, her keen observation skills proving invaluable in our work. Jordan had joined as my financial investigation partner, her brilliant mind now dedicated to uncovering frauds and scams targeting vulnerable individuals. We specialized in helping women protect their assets from predatory partners, teaching financial self-defense to those most at risk. The satisfaction of this work far exceeded anything I had felt in my previous financial career. The Robertson case files are ready for review, Maddie said, entering my office. Another Black Widow situation, husband slowly draining his wife's inheritance. Let's make sure she doesn't end up poisoned like I was, I replied, reaching for the folder. My near death had taught me that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars but in purpose. Daniel and Vivian had tried to take everything from me, including my life. Instead, they had given me a new mission, one that would protect countless others from suffering the same fate. I had lost my naivete, but gained something far more valuable, the chance to turn my personal nightmare into salvation for others. My revenge wasn't just in seeing Daniel and Vivian imprisoned. It was in using my second chance at life to ensure their kind could never succeed again. Every client we saved was another victory, another testament to the fact that I had not only survived, I had transformed. And that was the most powerful vengeance of all.